So it's my pleasure now to introduce Robin Priestley and Redwan Hussain from Rockwell Automation. As I mentioned, Rockwell is the largest industrial control system dedicated manufacturer, and they're an excellent partner in understanding energy management, not only just from a production standpoint, from an overall energy management standpoint as well. And they're going to share a little bit about some of the technologies that you can leverage throughout your systems. So Robin and Redwan, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The Rockwell Automation team is excited to talk to you about how energy management systems relate to sustainability. So just a quick introduction. My name is Redwan Hussain. I'm a solution consultant for Rockwell. Prior to my current role, I worked in the utilities field for several years, and now I'll hand it off to Robin.
Howdy. Then thanks for sticking with us. Everybody can see the slide, and it's got a picture of Redwan and myself. I am a sustainability senior consultant for Rockwell, and I've been involved with this for over 30 years. I'm qualified in power quality and in energy management. So with that, let's get rolling. All right, so we've been talking about security, we've been talking about solar panels, we've been talking about various connectivity issues. So why are we talking about energy management now? And the reason is actually pretty simple. In order for you to maximize the benefits of reducing carbon and being able to take advantage of all these things, you have to be able to understand what's happening. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about now, and about the ways that we can leverage this information to provide even greater use. One of the things when you're talking about an earlier, it was a great program about packaged offsite power solutions. And one of the things that they did was they built in their control system into the unit itself. Well, an energy management system can provide additional supervision, additional protection and things of that nature. And it can also act as a security net over perhaps older networks that aren't as effective or are more risky than newer platforms. But one of the big things that it gets you is it gets you the ability to verify and to validate where is your baseline, what is consuming energy, where is energy going out, if you're producing it, how much and where. And this is critical because long term, you want to be able to take advantage of various funding sources. So an energy management system gets you, and keep in mind, this is a loose term. You probably are already utilizing some components in that type of capacity, but it gets you a baseline, and that baseline allows you to then qualify and have the data that's required, the information that's required to apply for grants and tax credits and tax incentives and accelerated depreciation. These are all financial mechanisms that ultimately you're going to want to be able to use. And in order to do that effectively, you have to be able to show exactly what was going on before you did the project and after. Remember that when you're looking at grants and loans and federal programs, it's all based on the zip code of the physical installation, and we can always help with that. So energy management sets you up for sustainability wins. Now, whether you're talking about green generation from renewable sources, or whether you're talking about conservation, a good sustainability program leverages both. And what types of wins are we talking about? Well, first, if you have a secure, and you can't underestimate the requirements of security, but if you have a secure energy management system, now you've got baseline information. With baseline information, now you can leverage the potential of analytics and artificial intelligence and other tools, which will then allow you to make really significant process types of improvements to whatever the client site is doing, whether that's making, foam board or aluminum or anything. Now, what types of projects, have I, personally witnessed that can deliver real money? And the advantage to really high ROI projects, in addition to the carbon reduction and the immediate improvement in the information you can report on your sustainability reports, is the fact that that money can be redeployed and reinvested into more green and sustainable projects, or perhaps fund the improvements in analytics or process that really keep you light years ahead of everyone else, right? So on average, just to give you an idea, if you think about a 140,000 square foot manufacturing plant, typically once you start getting involved with what you can do from a conservation and energy management and sustainability project, you're really looking at roughly, in my experience, about $1 million in savings. Now we always focus on stuff that's less than a year simple payback. And that means tons of carbon that have been reduced. Big wins that I've witnessed and been part of, 9,000% ROI. It was a $540,000 project. The weekend that they turned it on, they basically were able to write a check for $6.5 million, that sort of thing. If you've got good baseline information, being able to do a walkthrough and find, in this case, at a manufacturing plant, $2 million in savings programs that they could do, all with less than a year payback, is not uncommon. Now, we've got a tool that Ron will be able to share with you that'll help you identify really simple projects that work almost everywhere. But to give you some highlights, compressed air, pumping and cooling, fans. The real golden rule here is anytime you do not use 100% of your capacity 100% of the time, whether that's hydraulic or chill water or heat, whatever the case may be, if you don't use 100% of that capability 100% of the time, you've got the opportunity to turn that into energy savings. If you look at compressed air, having returns of 1,500 to 2,500% in under a year is not uncommon. When you look at capital reduction or avoidance and the scope 3 and scope 2 reductions that you can get, these are all very, very real, and you can do them. Power quality is one of those things that people never think of. And I'm not talking necessarily about harmonics, which are real, but I'm talking about voltage sags. I have a client, they're in the food industry. They can document, and they're generally pretty happy to. They've saved $11 million in production costs over 9 years. Now, if you think about a company that might be operating on a 8% RONA, you're talking about an astronomical amount of money. It's ridiculous. And this all goes toward productivity. If we increase your amount of throughput per unit of energy and per unit of time, then you're more efficient. Your sustainability and your energy intensity scores go in the right direction. And obviously, when it comes to big box, whether it's a warehouse, a manufacturing plant, or a retail space, there are things that you can do with air handling that will make a massive difference as well. One of the things that people always want to talk about would be demand, right? Demand charges, which is, depending on the type of industry you're in, could be significant. Well, just to give you an idea what can be done if you've got information that you can use, you're looking at, in this case, when is 17% equivalent to 43? Well, this is at an appliance manufacturer where identifying a 17% increase in load factor, which is the ratio of demand to your average consumption, would result in a 43% reduction in their entire electrical spend, including paying the shift differentials that are required to move more people on to second and third shift. Now, lowering risk in any of these types of adventures, whether you're talking about solar or on-site generation or other things, lowering the risk is critical because you have to pump up the ROI and you have to be able to do this while lowering your risk. So just a couple of things. There are tools and ideas that Ron can send you. And the nice thing about this is that doesn't cost you anything, but you may find ideas of things you can look for. If you go down the path where you want folks to come in and help you identify what types of projects could be really beneficial for you, that's a great path forward as well. But always focus on math and physics. Make sure that everything is there, all the formula, all the reasoning and logic that go into it. Because when you're talking about security, There's IT security, and then there's also financial security. There are tons of lawsuits out there with companies and organizations that really promised more than they can deliver. Now, when you're thinking about lowering your risk and improving your ROI, and we're talking about sustainability projects, keep in mind, be open to all possibilities. We've been talking a great deal about electrical energy, but I can tell you that 9,000% win, that was based on steam. That was a steam issue. Focusing on math and physics and the financial reasoning without weasel words will ensure that you get those types of projects that come across the line as winners. Now, when we take the same approach with lowering risk and improving your ROI, what are some key things to remember with an energy management system? Oh, and Redwan?
Yeah, so the first thing to keep in mind, there's a wealth of information that already resides in a production system. So you want to start leveraging your existing technology stack to get the data out of your machines and understand how the performance is related to the resources that they're consuming. So while implementing an energy management system, it's important to consider finding a partner who has domain expertise in manufacturing to help you collate and contextualize all the data that you gather.
Yeah, you don't have to buy all new gear. Utilize, reutilize, and redeploy and reuse things that we always talk about when we're working with water. Reutilize as much as you can to lower your cost and decrease your risk.
And so the next consideration is it's common for manufacturers to use different vendors and different OEMs. So you may find them using different types of control systems. To get the full value out of your energy management system, you need to make sure that the different control platforms can talk to each other. So this way you avoid silos of information, you have better visibilities into the areas of improvement and potentially wasteful locations as well.
Now, Redwan, it is very, very typical that a manufacturing business might have started down this road 15 years ago with one group of products, then 5 years ago with another vendor group of products. How do we get control of all of those various networks and then provide some level of cybersecurity for those?
So the leading solution for that would be to use Ethernet IP. It's capable of talking to 27 different types of communication networks, and it also has embedded security.
Okay. Now,
I touched on this a little bit with the siloed information. Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more on the disadvantages of disparate systems or why you might want to avoid them.
Yeah, this is just a philosophical thing. Every day in this industry, there are more and more companies that provide niche solutions that are really, really cool. The potential problem is, though, that without enough users, without enough basically muscle behind it, they can't continue to maintain the security and the other things that you need to have, which is why I caution against going with something that might be wildly cool, but might be unsupported in the long haul. Ideas that kind of match up with that. I'll bet most of you don't remember that Rockwell once had a product called Dragonfly. Dragonfly gave you the ability to program and start up and troubleshoot variable frequency drives from your BlackBerry. And we updated that 5 or 6 times and then just couldn't keep up, and so we abandoned it. Betamax has got a similar type of story, but the big thing there is, remember that whatever you do, you want to be future-proofed. With Go Energy, right? They're future-proofing you by the way that their design integrates seamlessly, right? And so you have to future-proof in order to have that long-term safety. Foundations and security. What do you mean by that?
So it means having granular access to throughout the different levels of your manufacturing facility. For example, only the right personnel would have access to what they need to work on. Also, when migrating and making upgrades to your production system, you want to make sure that your security system remains intact and can detect threats in real time. So we've actually developed a protocol that ensures that whenever new devices are introduced, your control system remains impregnable at all times.
Okay. So in other words, you could replace a device or add a device or connect to something and ensure that your security is intact.